turn it over to Dr. James.
All right. Part of what I would like to do is go over, we have presented to the board, Dr. Hayward Evans has presented to the board our 5-year plan, and you've got some overall goals that by 2022 we expect to have done in the district. But part of what my job is to do every year is to present you with goals that kind of are more generalized and kind of how we're approaching the year. And we've got 4 of those that we want to look at, because our philosophy is the things you want us to do and the things that are important are the things that end up in the budget, and that's how we build a budget, is from those things. We want to increase our awareness of safety within our building. We want to ensure that our folks are safe, and we're doing that through lots of things that we've done in the past, like reviewing and analyzing state schools report and the staff development and the drills, but we also want AEDs in our schools and in our athletic facility. We want trauma kits in our schools, upgrading. Don's working on upgrades with the camera systems where those are appropriate, upgrades to our door locking systems, supervision, those sorts of things. So the safety piece of that is real important, and you'll see a lot of that in our first blush at a CPI. But we want to build positive relationships within our schools and within our community as measured on the State Department survey. That's important. It's important that our kids have got good relationships with our kids, and that our kids have got good relationships with other kids in the building, and of course our academic achievement. We're always going to say that we need to be at least at the state average. And that's just an expectation. From a budgetary standpoint, we're going to provide you with a balanced budget. But part of what we want to make sure that's in this balanced budget is that we have upgrades in our non-certified pay scales. Our non-certified folks are at the very bottom of the line. Tony Sargent does a really good job of keeping bus drivers on the road, but the reality of it is our salary scale is well below our neighboring district. So the thing that we've looked at as the district officers, those 3 ladies and Don sitting there, is how do we look at our pay scales for our non-certified folks and have those people who are in most need of increases in the end of the pay scale that's not as high. As we go through tonight, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Marcella to give you numbers for the schools. Elementary is going to wash out pretty even with a little bit of moving around. If you're like the kids starting to look at your papers before we talk about them, the elementary is going to kind of wash out. High schools are well equipped. Middle schools is a little funky. I see Dr. Brooks back there. There will never be enough people in Busby for him, but Marcella's going to go through that, and Kelly's going to talk to you about our general fund budget. Please remember that, we're still preliminary. The reason we want to meet with you tonight is so that you don't have any extra anxiety about, are we going to have a budget? Is our budget going to be balanced? What's going on? We're going to give you some information, but remember that some of it's preliminary. We don't have bottom line numbers. And then when Kelly does that, Don's going to talk to you just a little bit about CPIF budget, because it has to be approved per policy before general fund budget. So it's real April, which is before June. Thank you, Kelly. All right, Marcel, if you will talk to us a little bit about school numbers.
Yes, sir. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. James. In your package, you have our preliminary projections at this point in time. As we always remind you, this is a moving target, and you do know that we follow this through August and September, and we sometimes have to make adjustments in August and September. We have warned the principals or shared with the principals where we see decreases that it may not look that way in August, but this is the way it looks for us at this point in time. Additionally, we want to remind you that the numbers you see there do not reflect child development. We currently have 220 child development students in the district. We intend to expand next year with our full-day program now that we will have the facilities to accommodate. So bear in mind that that is not reflected there, nor are our students with preschool with disabilities. Those numbers are not reflected there as well. So I'll bring your attention to the elementary projections, and we'll just go school by school. You can see what we're predicting for BC number 1. We know that the 3rd grade looks a little heavy, but if you'll be mindful, for the last 2 years, we've had to do some transitions from BC number 1 to Pineview, and that seemed to have worked out for us pretty well. So, and also we have the opportunity to move some of those 3rd graders into Oasis when they qualify for Gifted and Talented. So we have our eye on that. We are proposing to add 1 FTE at BC number 1 for school year 17-18 to accommodate their 5th grade. KC Elementary will need to potentially do some movement between 1st and kindergarten, according to how those numbers shake out. And then we are looking to decrease at 4th grade, and the reason being, historically, the students at 3rd and 4th grade sometimes leave the KC Elementary area and transition over to BC number 1 for Oasis. And those applications are starting to come in, and so that trend seems to be holding again this year. So we feel like we'll have some wiggle room there. Congaree Elementary, they're on the rise, and we are proposing to add 2 FTEs at Congaree Elementary. Seawick, no changes there. Pineview, Mr. Sims is not very happy about this, but we are proposing to decrease by 1 at the 1st grade, but their ratio would still be 1:20. Saluda River Academy for the Arts, no changes. Springdale, a reduction of 1. And Wood, we are recommending to the administration that they make some changes, but that is up to the administration. At the end of the day, in looking at the landscape at the elementary schools, it would be a 0 wash. I'll entertain any questions you may have regarding elementary. Yes, ma'am.
The pension for the 3rd grade with the, are you seeing any numbers there?
That goes into effect at the end of the 17-18 school year, but you'll be pleased to know that we have met with all of our 2nd grade parents.
Yeah.
Those conferences, I don't know if you heard in the community, but those conferences began in January, and some are still going on at this point in time. But any potential student that we're concerned about with regards to not reading on grade level, the parents have been contacted. This is the first time ever where we have filled our reading camps so early. We will be offering 18 reading classes of reading camp this summer across Lexington School District 2, and most of those are filled. I think we're projected to have 270 students.
You told us you were going to start with the 2nd grade. Worked out well then.
Yes, ma'am.
That's good.
It caused a little discomfort, but the parents were very appreciative. As a matter of fact, Pineview is having a meeting tonight at 6 o'clock to meet with their 2nd and 3rd grade parents regarding the law and where we are. But I can tell you that face-to-face conferences where the parents have come in have been held.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is a balance. When you do all the pluses
Yes,
and
ma'am.
minuses, it's a complete balance. Okay, on the meetings with parents, I've got a number of complaints from the teachers who had to meet with those parents because it was new and it was a change in the law, and they felt that administration dumped it on teachers. I think we need to be careful and protect our teachers, not put them in a vulnerable position since they have to work with these kids every day and parents. And if I'm going to put somebody in a vulnerable position, I'd much rather be an administrator and not a teacher.
Well,
and there was lots of complaints about
I understand, and we would hope that in the future that we would all be working together and administration would be sitting in on those meetings with the parents. But I will take note of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the elementary schools? Moving on to middle school, as Dr. James shared, this has been an interesting, you will see that Busby's enrollment has peaked and continually peaking. Mr. Hinton sent me some preliminary school choice numbers right now, and for the first time in a long, long time, Busby is right behind Northside with regards to school choice requests. They have the second highest numbers of school choice requests. So congratulations to Dr. Brooks and his team and their efforts.
That's the highest number they've had, is 413 or so?
Yes, 413, and there are 23 school choices at this point in time. So those are not counted here. We are proposing to add 2 core teachers, and Dr. Brooks is not, he wants more, and we certainly understand that, at Busby. And the +1 there in the exploratory is to add a chorus teacher. Dr. Brooks and his team have worked very hard with the Arts and Basic Curriculum Grant that Saluda River has been a part of for many years. It's been a success for Saluda River. He and his team, Ms. Hall started when she was at Pear. Dr. Brooks took the baton and ran with it, and the School for Arts, they have been working very hard with Busby, and the recommendation is that they need a full-time chorus teacher to grow that program, so that's what you see there. Fulmer, no changes. Northside Middle, with the addition of the teacher we gave them in August, no changes. And Pine Ridge at this point in time, no changes. I'll entertain any questions about the middle school. Yes, ma'am. And then at the high school, as Dr. James alluded to in his preliminary comments, basically we have some wiggle room at the high schools to adjust with scheduling and through looking at our master scheduling, so we're not proposing any changes there as well. I'll entertain any final questions you may have.
One thing at the high schools, I think important for the board to remember, their FTEs, and as the high schools make their schedules, there are going to be things that, classes that some of them have lots of kids and some of them have fewer kids in it, but overall, from the number of FTEs they have, I think they have plenty enough that they can offer a wide variety, and I think that's got to be some kind of decision that's made in school, because again, there are going to be some of those that the classes will have 12 kids in it, but it's something that you got a group of kids that maybe it's Latin 4 or something that I could have never been in, and then you may have PE classes got 40 in it, but you know, they're well equipped with FTEs, and both of the high school principals have been principals for a while, so.
Is there a minimal there, Dr. James? I mean, there will be no less than, I mean.
The board has a practice of it not being below 10. Now, we've had some of our AP courses that have fallen below that, but the board's directive historically has been 10 kids in the class.
Where was that recorded? Because that hasn't been the facts in my 17 years. 10 is.
10 is the number that.
No.
So it should be.
We taught 15 would be the very minimum in times past, except for special ed. That's a totally different ballgame.
Special ed's a completely different animal. It's dictated by federal law,
yes.
So we don't have very much to do with that. But I haven't seen the 15 discussion, but I could be wrong. I mean, I've been in a lot of places that's easy to confuse me, but I'll be glad to look. But I haven't seen the 15. Matter of fact, when we talked about it in this budget meeting last year, we talked in terms of AP courses not having fewer than 10 kids in it. So, but again, I reserve the right to be wrong, and I'll be glad to look.
Question.
In the past, I know where we've had some AP where, let's say calculus, somebody was ahead of the game in that, and they got to the end, you may have only had 2 or 3 kids who were in the boat to be able to do it. So there was a class, but they weren't a separate class. They may have been, they were taking BC while somebody else is taking AB, but the teacher's just
Right.
dividing her time between one and the other to still be able to offer those
In one
students.
Yes, sir.
So even though the class is less than 10, it's not like consuming them.
Correct, correct. You're absolutely right, Mr. Bailey, because we're sometimes, and again, talking to you about, me talking to you about math, it's a little one-sided conversation, but you're absolutely right. When you get to that level of math, those higher level of math, the teacher's more of a facilitator. Those kids are already going and different. So we may have kids that are in one section of AP calculus, and it, like you talked about, be the AB, and another group of kids over here that are a whole nother thing, but they're all in the same room and the same teacher's facilitating it at the same time. So in the 2 years that I've been here, or the 2 schedules that I've gone through, we've never shut down class. Basically, it's been, if we've got the FTEs and can make it work, and you've got kids that want to be in those classes, we've done our best at both high schools to promote them going into whatever they want, because we've got some kids that are at the upper levels of some foreign languages, and we've done like 3 and 4 together on foreign languages. The higher level math that you talked about, we've had 2 of them in the same class. So it's real easy to look at that schedule printout, and it's got Bill Bingham there, calculus A, 3 kids. But unless you go through the whole thing and look down there at Bill Bingham that same block of time, and then look at calculus B and calculus C and all that, you may have 12, 15 kids in the same class. It's just they're not taking the same course.
Right.
That's it, Ms. Cindy, I think I have a question for me.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not an educator, so I guess you guys can actually inform me. I don't see a problem with 3 kids in the classroom. If we've got the teachers to teach it, kids need it, and it's not making other class sizes too large. I guess I just need somebody to explain to me what's the problem with having a small class if you have a teacher willing to teach it, kids need it.
Well, part of it,
But not based on the numbers that we're seeing.
part of it is the fact of what's the overall impact, and it's a very fine line, because at the end of the day, we want the kids who need the most advanced classes, or kids who want to take the most advanced classes, to get them. On the other end of that spectrum, if I can get a teacher like Mr. Bingham's talking about, where I've got several different groups of kids at a higher level class working together and teacher facilitating that, that's a good use of district resources, and that's a good thing for kids. But if I've got a really good experienced math teacher, and I've got 2 kids taking statistics, but I've got a class that's got 34 kids in Algebra 1, when I know that Algebra 1 is the #1 failed course in the country, and it's also the gatekeeper course as to whether or not kids will graduate high school, then I haven't done the best for the majority of the kids.
No, I understand that. And
So-
I guess my point is, as long as we're not doing that, as long as we're making sure.
I think
they
as
have-
long as we, and the
Just
bottom
the
line
fact
is,
we
I'm
have-
gonna always defer to Marcella unless it turns into a real mess, and then I'm gonna wear the mess. But, when Marcella looks at our numbers and says they're comparable with what is good for kids,
My point is,
we've been fortunate. I haven't had 3 in a class, but
well, my point is, if we did have a class with 3 and it's not having a negative impact on other classes, just because we have a class with 3 in it should not be a problem. So I don't want us to get stuck just on that number, as long as we're not punishing other classrooms, other class sizes, that kind of thing.
And I think part of that too, from just a standpoint of our employees, the fact that if Kay and I are both teaching, and I'm teaching biology, just show up biology, and Kay's somewhere way off advanced, and she's got all day long, she's got 3 and 4 kids in a class, and I got 26. Sooner or later, I'm gonna say, whoa.
That's
But
right.
now, if it's 1 and it's this year, I agree with you. I just think we've got to make sure that we don't,
It's got to be balanced.
everything's got to work out right. It's a,
Goes down to 2 words, teacher retention. No, I understand, and you're not gonna have, you know, like you like to talk about, you don't have the same teacher that has two people all day long, it's gotta be a balance.
I mean, we're gonna try to
But
do
it's
our
not-
best.
I was there for 30 years, it is not balanced. There are, you think teacher pets, there are administration pets. So the teacher retention, and that's what gets your faculty so in an uproar, is that very thing. There's certain people always get the cream of the crop, and I've always got the children that have a discipline problem and have 40
Challenges.
Yeah, challenges.
Absolutely.
But you understand, that's also homework at night, grading papers, planning
Sure.
for diversities, even within that one class, because you have to modify and adjust for each child.
I got you. Thank you.
Ms. Kessler?
Dr. James, as you know, I brought several examples to you last year about teachers that only had a total of 2, and it wasn't a combined class like Mr. Bingham suggested, which I think is really good, because we have had that in some foreign language classes and some art classes. We have had that. I had it in gymnastics. I had 3 levels of gymnastics kids. So I understand staffing those classes and putting one teacher. But I brought multiple examples to you last year, and you researched and verified my statement. I've even been to you this year with people that have 1 or 2 kids in a class. When you're talking about equity, and you're talking about that person beside you, you've got 200 kids teaching, and the one beside you is only teaching maybe a total of 40, and you're thinking you're both getting the same paycheck, it does make a big difference. But my question actually goes to the projection enrollment. Here I see that Airport is going to lose students next year, and that Brooklyn Casey is going to grow, which is good. But can you tell me your rationale in thinking that we're going to lose some of the people in the airport? Does that have to do with the middle schools that are coming and feeding those schools?
Sometimes that is where we lose some kids to grade having.
Is that in that area?
Well, typically, the airport kids, for some reason, historically, if we've lost children, it's been from the airport. But I will be honest with you, by December, they come back.
Okay. So you don't see a virtual issue that we have? Okay, thanks.
Historically, that's what has happened with them.
Ms. Brandon?
And I appreciate all the discussion, and I think, Dr. James, we just want you and Marcella just to be mindful of all the issues that the board has raised, the balancing for the teachers, but also the opportunities for the students. For example, I know that like AP Music Theory at BC might be small when it's offered, but it's only offered every 2 years. And so I feel like the administration has to take that type of thing into consideration, because you do have a very vibrant fine arts program at both high schools, and you want those kids to be able to have those opportunities to take them on to college. So I can understand you don't offer it every single year for 2 kids, but if you can offer it every 2 years so everybody gets a chance, it might max out at 8, but I still think, you know, we would maybe do a waiver, and I don't know if you want to do a process to make a waiver sign off or whatever, but I just trust your judgment on that. But I think you hear the concerns on both sides of this issue.
Yes, ma'am.
And then my question, if we're done with talking about this, and this may be a Joni question, or maybe not. Dr. James, looking forward, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so you're welcome to answer this in another meeting, but looking forward, and Dr. Evans, when we add Kate and bring that online, are some of these airport and BC teachers actually going to go staff there?
Yes,
Will we
ma'am.
have some kind of increase in staffing that we're going to need? Or will we look to the future to see what we may have to add in terms of programming and positions?
I can answer Ms. Brown, not completely, but give you a really good idea of those teachers who are in each of the high schools currently. Teaching a CAPE course will go to the CAPE Center. There very well may be a need to hire some new CAPE teachers in different disciplines, and we will do that. I fully expect to move some core area teachers from both schools to the CAPE Center. Right now, we are still in really good negotiations with being able to offer, and Terry, I appreciate you not writing this down, just out of the goodness of your heart, but we've got some, you laugh at talking, I'm begging the media. We've got a really good opportunity to offer some higher level science courses, college science courses at this CAPE Center,
while we don't have a signed MOA, we've got a word agreement, and we want to get some of those people that can influence the academic. Part of what I would like to see, Ms. Brown, is that building be the hub of this district, where we're bringing our best and brightest to get not only some hands-on experience in engineering kinds of fields, but in medical kinds of fields, and they're getting exposure to the application level, not just the knowledge-based level. And that's akin to bringing your AP Physics class over to an industrial shop, and they're looking at, you know, what's going on inside a hydraulic jack, why does that work, why has that got anything to do with physics, or to go into the electricity part and say, you know, how is it really truly that this solar ties together, but not unlike what they would have called application-based learning in my day, or maybe back when you first started teaching. We're looking for that to be like the crown jewel. It's in a really good location. We've got some really good neighbors there from an industrial standpoint. So, short answer to your question, if you teach a CADE course, yes, you'll be there. Are we going to have some academic courses? Yes, unless this board puts the skids on that, because we want our best and brightest kids to go through those doors. So, you're smiling.
That's good. I'm just, Cindy. I think you called me old somewhere in there, but I'm okay with it.
I didn't quite hear all.
I'd like to know how you went into this group.
She kind of back in the day.
No, thank you, Dr. Jones.
Man, if I wanted abuse like that, Ms. Brown might stay home. Thank you.
Me too, Dr. Jones.
Beth, I'm just gonna tell you, anybody that's been on this board for 17 years is old.
I didn't say that.
Children in college.
Point taken. Point taken.
I'll admit it, I'm old.
I'm fighting.
Just baby.
I'm doing mine.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you will find out. Yes, exactly.
Do we have any other questions about numbers in high schools and FTEs? The good thing for both high school principals is we're not taking anybody. So they're not getting anybody, but we're not taking anybody. And yes, Dr. Brooks wants 4 more people. So, Ken, if you can give us some rundown.
This one.
Just sit there and act like somebody. Ken, if you can give us some general fund update.
Yes, thank you. We've met with all of the principals and fund managers and department heads over the course of the past several months to get their ideas on what their needs were for their budget, and we have received estimates from some of those costs. But first I'm going to share some data with you, just to kind of let you know where we are. And everything we're sharing tonight is what we know as of right now, so, which is not a lot when it comes to state revenue, I'll be honest with you, but we'll share that and we'll get to that. First thing I have is just, again, an update on where we are with our ADM. We're a little up, that's of the 45 days, so that could change for the 135 day for this year, but we are slightly up from last year. But that last year number, all the prior year numbers are the 135th day numbers, so just kind of let you know. The next, and this is small to see at a distance, but this is just an update on our assessed values. I think back in February, I shared with you our collections on local revenue was significantly up this year. And these estimates are from the county auditor as of March the 20th. We actually just got these this week. So you can kind of see we are looking at an increase on our assessed value that we use for debt service of 3.72, which is the highest over the past several years. Actually, the highest, I went back even 5 more years back. So that's really good. Our assessed value is growing. More businesses are coming. You can see that the owner occupied, which is people's primary residence, is staying pretty steady. So what is growing are our businesses, which is where we're getting general fund dollars. we get the debt service dollars on both. So even with that 250 million, that'll equate to about a little over 9 million for our CPIF for this year, so that's good. And then on the assessed value for operating, it's up almost 4.5% over the prior years. And again, that was the highest, looking back even 5 years prior to this. So this is the highest increase we've seen in a non-reassessment year. So I wanted you to have that, just to let you know kind of where we're looking at with that. That's a good sign. And hopefully as more things come on with the, I know with the West Columbia TIF, that'll be even more businesses that come to the district. Any questions on the assessed values? Okay. And next is just the legal calculation from Act 388. I'm not proposing a tax increase, but I like you guys to know what that calculation looks like from a legal standpoint. What you do is you get the increase from the population growth of the district and the consumer price index. And we get both of those two numbers from the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. So that's a 1.78% increase. Our current operating mills are 146.46. So the cap, should we choose to have a tax increase, would be 2.61 mills. And that's just what's legal by law that we could do should we choose that route. I'm not proposing that.
Yeah, make sure
Thank
you
you.
put out there,
Thank
if
you.
not, that's just.
I'd just like for you guys to know what that number would look like. And again, using those same assessed values, assuming that we really only collect 96% of all taxes on that, that's, again, that collection rate comes from the county of 96.07, gives us an estimated value of the mill for the general fund of $170,500. So, and that's up again from the prior year. I think it was around 165 or so.
Question on that, Cal?
Yes.
So, I know you're not suggesting tax increase, but just so I understand how it works.
Mm-hmm.
2.61 is the max mills that we could increase. Each mill is worth 170,500.
Correct.
So those two times each other would be the
Exactly.
maximum we, okay, got it.
Yes, that would be the maximum dollars that we would get should we choose that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? The next page is just an update through the most recent tax revenue collections we have, which is through the end of February. We won't know the number for March until probably after we get back. Probably the week we're on spring break is when we'll get that from the county. So again, it's up over what we've collected as of the end of February for the 2016 year by 1.6 million. I'd like to get March collections in to get a better idea on our local revenue before we start making any assessments on local revenue, but that is a very good sign. So we have some room to increase our tax budget, local tax revenue budget. But again, I like to stay conservative with that because you never know what may happen. And again, we usually continue to get around 350 to 400,000 a month on our vehicle taxes. So everybody seems to be buying vehicles, and that has been increasing. And people are paying their taxes because delinquent taxes are down. So, any questions on that? And Angela has pointed out my grammatical error on this one that I will correct on year. This is just an annual assessment of our local tax revenue from year to year and how those increases have looked over the past several years. And the 16-17 is estimated based on the number on the previous page, plus roughly 350,000 or so per month for vehicle tax. Again, that's a conservative estimate. The next page is just an update. Last year I shared this with you just to kind of give you an idea. Before we can even start our general fund budget, we have to make sure we're looking at what's charged to our Title I budgets, our IDEA budgets, all of our federal and local, federal and state big dollars that we receive in for, that are earmarked for special things, to make sure that it's gonna sustain, for one, the health insurance increases and the 2% retirement increase and the step increases. So we like to look at what those increases or decreases have been, and over the past several years, those have decreased. This year, these are our allocations that we've received. They've increased a little bit, still not enough to sustain some of the increases. So if you remember last year's budget, we did add some in for IDEA, because IDEA is one of those that always runs a little short. And it's that second group. You can see how it's been decreasing. We're back up to where we were in 14-15, basically. So that's an area of concern for our budget, is making sure we can sustain that, because that's not optional, basically. Those are special ed teachers and programs that we have. Again, Medicaid, this is a reimbursement based on our billing, so I only have the 15-16 number as a final number, and it's roughly staying about the same. Again, Medicaid is one of those questionable things from year to year, so I don't like to charge a lot of recurring expenses to Medicaid, just not knowing what's going to happen with Medicaid funding. And then our state revenue for at-risk students, again, it's roughly stayed the same for the past 3 years. The 14-15 years when they collapsed a lot of programs into one, so that's why that big change is reflected there. Any questions on any of that funding? All right, the next is just currently where we are legislatively. The House had a $50 base student cost increase, which was only around $214,000 for us. Senate Finance has increased it an additional $35. So this is just the actual calculation of how it takes each of our categories of students based on the ADM times the weighting to get our weighted pupil units. And then the formula is at the bottom for how that really calculates out to what we would receive. And at the very bottom on the in that darkened box is what we're projecting at this 2435 of $20,699,857 as it compares to what we have currently in the budget. So how that would differ in our budget for 17-18. So basically it would be $397,264. So
That's the increase versus last year.
Right. So that's what projected, yes, at the 2435, which is always at this point in time, so.
I thought initially the Senate was going to be going for 150.
Yeah, we were hoping it would, because the word was they wanted to keep it at the same amount that the Department of Ed had recommended, which was $2,500. That's closer to a little over $1 million for us, but that didn't happen, so it still could happen. The Board of Economic Advisors canceled their March the 23rd meeting, and they're not meeting until April the 10th. So they won't know about any new money, any revenue updates until April the 10th. So I don't foresee anything happening until possibly after April the 10th. But that's just my crystal ball, unless something happened today that I'm not aware of. So. Okay. On the next page is just based on our total general fund expenditures for the full fiscal year ending 2016 and the 135-day count, just our general fund per pupil expenditures for general fund for each school. And then what our averages are. That's just FYI. All right, next is just kind of what we're looking at on our expenditure side and what our estimates are for the things we do know about. What we do know about is our step increase, and that for all of our eligible staff for just a step increase is $992,000. And then the fringe associated with that, $377,000. Now, the retirement increase, it's going to increase 2%. But what's still unclear is how that impacts us. There's one argument in the House version, yes, there's a 2% increase, but part of the money, 1% was going directly to the retirement system on our behalf, on all school districts' behalf. And then 1% would be an actual expense to the districts. And then they were going to fund a portion of that. Well, then the Senate has now said the 2% is going we'll give you all the revenue. We don't know, bottom line, we don't know at this point what our revenue that we're going to receive. So this is what 2% cost would be for us. Whether or not we're going to have to pay that, or they're going to pay it, a portion of it or all of it on our behalf, we're still very unclear about that. So I just wanted to let you guys know that 2%, if we were to have that cost, would be $945,000. Now, it could be that we come back and learn that the majority of that comes to us in revenue. Or it could be that they come back and say that they're going to send that to the retirement system on our behalf. We're not clear on that piece of it.
But we plugged in the entire 945 for the simple reason that we know retirement will increase 2%.
Right.
The worst scenario we've been told of is that 1% of it would be an expense, which would be 470, whatever, 250 or whatever.
Whatever half of that
Less
would
than
be.
$500,000, but we don't know. And then, like Kelly said, the Senate version is the entire 2% could be picked up. So there could be a windfall of $945,000, but the bottom line is either we're going to pay $945,000 or it's going to pass through here. The 2% that's in stone, whether we get the revenue or whether it comes out of what we already have, or if a portion of it. So we're being real conservative and saying this is the worst it can be, and anything after that is a good day.
Right.
So that may come back and that line is zero the next time you all see this budget. So
The only problem I have with that version is what will happen for 18-19. Because this is going to increase 1% each year after the 2% increase for 5 more years, for 5 years. So, what does it look like for Lexington School District 2 when we fill out our retirement reports and pay our retirement portion each month? Because we know that amount is going to be 18.89%. So that's what 2% would look like for us. So I wanted to give that, at least we know that number, whether we pay it, like Dr. James said, or they give the money to us, or they pay it on our behalf. So we'll get back to you on that when we get some clear direction from the state. We don't even have estimates from the state. The other thing that we don't have from the state is every year we receive fringe allocation from the state. They give us money for fringe contributions. We don't have that estimate yet either, and what that's going to go up. So on the revenue side, we do know that the health insurances, they're proposing a 3.4% increase on the cost for employers. So that's factored in on that next line item for $320,000. What we don't have is the revenue associated with that revenue on the fringe increase yet. The next line item is just a estimate on what we're anticipating for our special ed budget. There again, IDEA I don't think is going to support the 2% increase on retirement, should we have to eat that, or the 3.4%, if our allocation remains the same on IDEA. Unfortunately, we never know that until later on in the year, August, sometimes September, what that allocation is going to be. And then excuse me, at this point, plugging in some utilities, since we are keeping all of our schools open, and we'll have a new school, and we'll get some better numbers on that as well. Now, these are things we know that are going to potentially increase. Below that are some additional items And these are in priority number from priority order, as Dr. James talked about. Bus drivers, most of our surrounding districts are paying at a minimum of $2 more an hour than what we are paying the bus drivers. So that estimate is what it would cost us to add $2 an hour to our bus driver scale. We had 19 bus drivers have left this year already. Now, whether they left for money or for whatever else, but I do know we're getting them, we're training them, they're leaving to go somewhere else. So that's the estimate on that. The changes to the salary schedules, as Dr. James mentioned earlier, that's the cost to add a step increase to the salary scales that currently do not have them. Some of our salary scales, if you look at those, from 20 years on up, they're in bands where for 20 to 25 it stays the same, and then from 25 to 30 it's the same number, so it doesn't increase for 5 years. And these people are getting their retirement contribution has been increasing every year as well as any health insurance increases. So this is the amount it would take to take those scales and actually give an increase from those years 20 on down. It doesn't impact 0 to 19 on anything other than the bus driver right now. And it's only the scales that didn't already have that increase in it, and it's the ones listed below: the custodians that we still have on staff, maintenance, teachers aides, OTPT, our computer techs, computer lab managers, and our nurses.
But that's real important. I know that one of Tommy's guys I talked with, and because of the differences in retirement and differences in insurance, you got a person that's actually making less money in spendable dollars. So we're desperately trying to get that where at least we're keeping up with what's going on, because those are folks that keep us moving, and they're the lowest salary. So that's two pretty important in my budget vision. So.
The next are the positions that Marcella showed in the previous pupil-teacher ratios, those positions. We also have a need for a 1.4 occupational physical therapist. That's that's not correct. The fourth one is to add an administrative assistant at the middle schools, each of the middle schools. There it is. And ESOL teachers. And Marcella might can speak more to the ESOL, how that works.
As you're aware, each year you've been very gracious to give us a few positions. Last year you allotted us 3 positions. With the money we received from the state regarding ESOL, they will only allow us to spend that money on certain things until we can get the pupil-teacher ratio with ESOL to 1 to 60. Right now we're at about 1 to 90. So we really need about 10 positions to get down to the 1 to 60. We know that's a work in progress, but if we can continue to chip away with it, hopefully the state will give us grace with regards to how we can spend the funds. As Ms. Gunner always shares, right now we can only use it for like after-school programs and professional development. If we get the ratios down, then we can use those funds for other things.
Part of what I would tell the board at this point, you can almost draw a line in the center part of this page. We know what we have to have, and you've seen that in the numbers of FTE that Marcella's given you. We've got some fairly good revenue estimates based on what knowledge we have right now. Everything as it is now, if you drew that line under total mandatory budget increase, we could probably make that work. What we're hoping is that we can start working our way down other things like the bus driver increase, like the changes to the salary scale for those other folks. None of that's a guarantee, and right now this is a real work in progress. So we're not asking for any decisions, and we won't give you any concrete information.
we're kind of giving you some food for thought and an idea of where we are, but
You know, I did notice that that's an error on numbers 3, 4, and 5 didn't get switched, I apologize. Those should be times the number of FTEs that's representing on those. So, we're still waiting on the state for a fringe allocation to find out what's gonna happen with the retirement and any other revenue updates or changes that might come from base unit costs, so. Any questions?
Maybe I had a couple, I don't know if they've come through you or who. One thing I've been noticing, the school nurse, the substitute nurse, I know there's been a real issue in our district. But when we're requiring a school nurse to come in with a RN degree, a 4-year degree, and we only pay them just under $10 an hour, it's hard to get somebody to come in and do that when they put their license on the line and administer medicine to kids for under $10 an hour. We're gonna struggle to get somebody to go in there now. And they're struggling now because they stay calling. So that's a big concern I think we should have.
well, the overall nursing salary scale is one of those that's in there now. Substitute,
It's
that's,
the same
that's,
substitute
that's
pay.
probably
Yeah.
something that we need to look
I
at
agree.
according to what they're doing, because that is a licensed position, and you're right, once, our insurance will cover them, but if something, heaven forbid, if something bad happens, that is a situation. But the regular nursing salary scale is, it's not equitable to what it should be either, so.
So we can look at that. And then I had another question on, I had a teacher approach me and she was so excited. She got pregnant. Her baby was due right at the end of the school year, and so she was great. She wouldn't miss her 30 days. The baby came early, 7 weeks early. And so now she's going to miss like 34 days. So is that correct that she would not receive credit for that school year since she missed over 30 days when she takes medical leave with this child?
If she has leave, she should.
It'd be a 4th-year teacher. And she got a letter stating that she would not receive credit for this school year.
But see, that comes from the State Department, and the question goes back to what Kelly's asking, if she had enough leave that the State Department would count that, because they're only gonna grant credit for a year based on how much of the year you're actually there or have actual leave to take,
I
so.
think you have to be, I think it's 155 days, 52
It's
days.
152, I think.
It is.
I think
So you're talking about with her certain years' experience in education?
You're talking about her retained
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, retained year. I think she's gonna lose
Yeah.
the year.
And the same
because
works
of
for
this.
teaching staff and the same works for TAs. If she has enough leave or it runs consecutively with FMLA, which is designed for folks who do not have leave.
Okay.
And if this is a 4th-year perk, sick leave name is generally not an option for maternity leave unless it's a catastrophic situation, et cetera. But, you know, unless she has no leave, would that be the case?
And part of that, Kevin, may be that whoever this person is needs to come in and sit and talk to Angela, because the last thing we would want is for anybody to lose a year over 2 days. I mean, we can't change the state ruling, but
There are options for that.
I mean, we can look at.
That doesn't have to be, did I hear you correctly, 2 days to leave?
How many days it is? I think it's like 34, 35 is what she was thinking.
That
So
should
that's
be
based on
out.
when the baby is still in intensive care now. But it should come home hopefully next week if he gains another pound or 2.
Mhm.
But how many days short of the full year?
Of
I think like maybe a
190, we would.
week. I'm not sure. But I have contact you.
Yeah, there's ways to work.
Okay. All right.
Tell her to come up here and talk to
Okay.
Angela.
Will do.
That's the State Department rules, 152 days.
Okay.
I want to make sure I heard you correct. On items 3, 5, 3, 4, 5, you said you're supposed to multiply the FTEs times the number you have
Yes.
under there, so it'd be 3 times 53,000.
Yeah, but that,
3.4
I need
times
to,
30. and 4 times 71,000.
30 looks low for an OTPT, I'll be honest with you. Let me look at that. I don't know what happened. I thought I had my formulas connected to another spreadsheet unless those got messed up. So let me get that updated.
So they may not just be those numbers. now.
Right, yes, because 30 looks a little low. I don't even think that's the starting on our
That might be,
OTPT
that might be the
scale.
starting, but I doubt we'll find OTPT at that level. Anything else?
Any other questions?
Any other questions on that? Okay.
All right, Don's gonna go over just preliminary CPIF. We'll bring this to you all in April. I said it's gotta be approved before the general fund budget. Kelly said it's gotta be approved in April, so we'll bring it to you in April. But Don's got a draft of kind of where he's going with CPIF from his standpoint, and then we've got a technology budget there.
It's like this.
Don?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. James, we have been working on our preliminary draft for the CPIF budget for quite some time now, and as you can see, if you start at the top and come down, a lot of it is tied up in roofing and HVAC. Sound systems, we've had a request from both schools to put sound system in at each of the cafeterias. We're going to try to accomplish that this year. Also, a sound system for airport auditorium. That was one of the things that was in the bond referendum that was on the task list. So we're going to try to accomplish that as well. There's a possibility the contractor was supposed to be getting back with me. We have a sound system in the scope of work that they're doing right now, but the estimator was new when we started working on all this. He came in kind of after a lot of it had been done, and John Farley was not available for us to talk to this afternoon. But there is a sound system in there, but he thinks it's the sound system for the weight room. And I think it's in there, but just in case it's not in there, I'm going to cover it in this budget. So that may be money that might be available. You can also see a large percentage of what we're talking about is also in painting of the schools. And what we have decided is that we're looking to paint schools where we're having construction taking place now. Excuse me. And talking through this with Pope Walker, our painting consultant, and Tommy King and myself, we felt like it was going to be very difficult to get these schools painted within the 9-week window that we have this summer with the construction that's going on, unless we tie this painting into what the contractors are doing. In other words, unless we give the contractors control over getting it done. So it's going to cost us a little more money to do it that way, but we really feel like that's the only way we're going to accomplish this task. So we're in the process now of working with the contractors to make sure that the markups are to a minimum as best we can, and then we're going to try to turn it over to them and let them get, we've got at least 4 painting companies that we're going to ask them to get bids from, and then we'll let the contractor control this as the work takes place at these school sites. We've had a problem at Northside Middle School with water coming in. We just painted that school, and I guess the western facing wall, there's water that's coming in that wall. It's penetrating. It's not uncommon for the wind and rain that comes from that direction. I've seen it. I actually dealt with it before I came here at a gymnasium very similar to this. So we've gotten with our roofing consultant, we've gotten with our painting consultant, and we think we have a plan to remedy that issue. So we're going to
we're going to be addressing that as well, so that's in there. As I stated to you in the last meeting that we had, we also have some money in here to do a press box, baseball press box, and we've also looked at doing ADA. We're going to do ADA restrooms, just add them on to the canteen. The design team basically has come up with, there will be 4 independent restrooms, 2 of which will be handicap accessible. Then you got carpet. We're going to change the carpet in the classrooms at Northside out to VCT. We're trying to get away from carpet in the classrooms as our standard. We're buying carpets to go in our elementary schools to eliminate what we've been seeing, where the rooms were half carpet and half VCT, and you always get wax on that carpet and it looks bad. So we're going to change out that carpet in those classrooms. We got to move portables. We got to move portable from Springdale over to Taylor to accommodate the numbers of students that will be there. We got to move teachers. Not only do we have to move teachers to Davis and Taylor, we're going to move Springdale and Saluda River over to Davis and Taylor. And then before we start with our next budget, we've got to move them back. So in June, we'll be moving Springdale and Saluda River back. We'll be moving Fulmer over to Davis, and then we got to move the K teachers over to the K Center.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
You're planning, I guess that's to pay the bus drivers?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
The teachers are going to be working too, so they're going to be doing it for free?
The teachers are supposedly packing this stuff up in boxes prior to school being out.
I realize that, but they're having to do it after school and on weekends. It's kind of strange that we're looking out for the people that are going to be moving, but we're not really looking out for the teachers going to be doing the same thing. And I assume that they'll be there to move into their rooms. Just a question.
Well, and Mr. King, have we ever, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we've ever paid teachers to pack up their boxes.
I can't answer what they've done as far as in moves or whatever, but I think it's fairly common that you set up your own room, and I understand Ms. Kessler being concerned about them packing their stuff in their boxes. But having been a classroom teacher, I would rather pack my own stuff in my box than to have somebody who was moving pack my stuff.
I understand that. I just know that right now they're spending hours after school and coming back on weekends to do, because they're trying to purge and get stuff.
Hopefully they're not to that point right yet, because
The
we're
principals
hoping
have
they're
already,
teaching.
the
and
principals have already
get
told them
ready.
to do it. They've been working it for several months.
Well, we're hoping right now they're teaching, because we got testing coming up, but
That's why I said it's being done after school and on weekends. But that's just a question.
well, the short answer is no, ma'am, we don't have any money in there to accommodate for that.
Thank you.
Here are 2 items that I wanted to throw out there, because both principals have asked us to remove lockers from the hallways. And I will tell you that my first impressions of the high school was when I walked in and I saw these cables running through lockers. I wondered what was going on. They're not being used now. The principals are asking that they be taken out, which means we would have to come in and paint behind those lockers. They're usually up on the lip, but the lip would have to be removed, and then there's usually VCT or some sort of flooring that would have to be worked up or replaced. So what we've done, and I will tell you that in looking at airports, there's at least 2 layers of VCT in the hallways, and when I saw that, and Tommy felt the same way, they didn't take that first layer out for a reason, and the reason is because that there's asbestos underneath there. So we're looking at doing it right. So we've met with some folks today. Tommy met with them, and we're looking at coming up with a plan to try to take that out and put VCT in like it should be, if you approve of us doing this task at both schools. Now, at BC, they only want lockers taken out of the north and south wings. They want to keep them in the east wings because some students do use them there. So that's the only request at this point, that we have to keep any of the lockers in the high school hallways. So that's something for you to think about. Most of the rest of this is similar to what we had in the budget last year. We're going to start working on replacing, last year we had in the budget to replace T12 lights. We're going to start replacing T8s, and we're thinking that we'll be able to kind of go with probably 3 schools at each of these budget years, and eventually try to replace all of them. So we have not started replacing the ones. We had $250,000 in the budget for this year, but we're getting ready to come up with a plan to start doing that. And I think BC High School, if I'm not mistaken, has over 600 fixtures, and that's going to be our first school that we go in and work on replacing. And then we're going to also try to get, I think, Pine Ridge, Congaree Wood as we can. We'll go as far as we can with what money we have.
Ms. Green?
Have you looked at the possibility, I know like GE has a unit where they'll come in and instead of having to do this thing piecemeal, they'll finance it and they just replace all the lights in your district with LED, and you just pay them sort of a lease purchase arrangement where instead of having to do this thing piecemeal, you get it all done and you get the benefit of the energy savings a lot quicker.
We are aware of those programs. Hubble has the same type of program. In fact, we had some folks to come and talk to us about that when I first came. And we've talked to Kelly about this too, and we're of the opinion that we would prefer to go ahead and pay for it rather than having to finance something. And I think with the windfall that we will have when we're finished with this building program, we'll be able to go in and do all of that, what's left at one time. And I know there's a payback to it, and I've seen those numbers with various things, but I've never seen it actually happen the way that they say that it does. But yes, sir.
Speaking along the same lines, SNG has had a program for upgrading lights as well. I took advantage of it at my office, where they basically paid 80% of the cost to do the lighting upgrade. So we had incandescent bulbs. They came in and put the high efficiency. They didn't do LEDs. They did some of the high efficiency fluorescence, that kind of thing. But I think they have the same program available to go to LEDs as well. I don't know if it would apply in a school or industrial situation, but I know they offer it on the commercial rated stuff.
Are you familiar with that, Tom?
We talked to them about that when we first started, but the only thing we qualified for was the rebate program in our new building that we have a cap on annually, which we've captured all that we can possibly capture through the Casey Elementary, and have already begun talking about capturing. You get a total of $100,000 a year rebate. And we captured all of that through the Casey Elementary. We've already begun talking with them and getting paperwork started on the ES2 to do the same thing. But at that point, that was all they told us that we were qualified for. Certainly be glad to follow up and see if there's something else that they didn't tell us about.
Yeah, Mike said look into it because it was actually a program that they were working with a supplier of the actual lighting fixtures that was a partner in this. And so they actually had contracted with local installers that came and did it. So when you sign here, they call you, schedule it, they come and replace the fixtures, they send you a bill for the 20%. So it's pretty slick.
Actually, what he's talking about was one of the booths at the convention in February at the, down at Hilton Head. Is what Ray was saying, because I stopped there and picked up some brochures, and she said that.
It was SAEG too?
Yes, sir.
Johnson Control also does that. There's a good number of those.
I'll be glad to contact Paul Hampton in the morning and follow up on it.
Thanks, sir.
We're also looking to start replacing our burglar alarm systems, which we're calling the intrusion systems here. What we have now is we have systems that work well. It's just that this company indicates that they own the equipment, and it's very difficult for us to, well, they charge us a monitoring rate. And we're looking to get away from someone else owning the equipment that's in our buildings. We want to, what we have in our buildings should be ours. So we're looking to remedy that issue if we can. So we're going to start just chipping away at replacing those. And those would be around $20,000 per school. Is what we're calculating. We're hoping to get it cheaper than that. And then you're looking at activity bus. One bus will be bought this year. Fencing, 2 motors, service trucks, some turf maintenance, and that's on the artificial turf. We're at a point where we need to have them come back and groom it and do what needs to be done to make sure that those last like they should. Also, we have a detention pond at Northside Middle School that is all grown up, and technically we're supposed to be maintaining those. So we need to go in and we need to cut it back, and there's some pretty good timber in the tree in that pond. So we're looking to go in and clean it out and try to maintain it like it should be maintained. Digital signs, we mentioned to you previously that we would like to look at doing some digital signs at all, or digital sign at all of our schools eventually. We actually have a committee that's going to be looking at the restrictive guidelines for each of the municipalities. In fact, Dr. Brooks has volunteered to chair that committee. We actually have one municipality that does not currently allow a digital sign, but they have indicated to me that they would work with us, and hopefully we will be able to overcome those obstacles. And I'm asking this committee to develop a district standard so that we're all kind of getting the same thing. Obviously, it will be personalized with their logo and that sort of thing, but we just want to make sure from a size standpoint it will meet the standards that are set forth in each of our municipalities, governing bodies, and that there will be equity when we finish.
Would you tell me what 4 schools you want to start with?
We're not sure. At this point, we just want to kind of put it in there, but we're thinking that, Busby, Casey, and the Cade Center will all be covered by the construction that's going on there, because we actually have money in for each of those for signage. We're going to have to add a little bit of money to that, so we're thinking we can cover those without hitting this budget. Congaree, there's money in there for that one for construction as well, but it's only money to move the existing sign. So what I'm saying is basically we're going to have to go through this, and we're going to have to weigh what we got to put toward each of these and figure out what's left, and then kind of come up with a plan, and you will eventually get to approve the plan of where we're going to spend this money. Security cameras, we wanted to put some money in there since we're not replacing the old cameras. We're pulling wire to the old cameras. So if a camera goes down, then we would be able to have money to go in and replace those as needed. And then basically, that's pretty much it. We got some broken tile at BC High School in the little commons area there where the stairwell comes down. We'd like to replace that and make it look better. You have to entertain any questions that you have on these or comments.
Other areas for the pavement patching, AHS and Slater River, have you identified other areas, or is that just a generalized statement?
Well, potholes occur throughout the year.
Wherever.
Yeah, and right now I was telling Mr. King that I know we've got one at the airport between the tennis courts and the visitors entrance right there, and so wherever they come up, we just want to we have money to deal with them.
Yes, sir. And when you're repairing the rollers and all on the bleachers, there is some floor damage, and you're gonna redo those floors. Will that floor damage be taken care of in all the gyms when this new, when you're redoing those floors? Also in the arena, where the plates are in the floor, there's some broken wood and it's broken boards right there, and it's really moving. So when they do this, they will replace and repair areas that need to be replaced in all the schools.
I don't think we have money in there for that, do we, Tommy?
Well, then why would we finish a floor that's,
We can put money in, I'm just saying, I don't think we currently have money in there. We just need to evaluate it. And I don't know, Mr. King, are you aware of what they're talking about?
Yes, sir. We've got a couple places where the bleacher wheels are going to have to be replaced. This was found whenever we redid the seats at airport. I had Glenn Messenger in that group come in, and he noticed what I was talking about when I showed it to him, and he came back with the money, with the cost that we have the money in there to replace those. He's also looking at the ones at the other gyms as well, so we can try to be ahead of the game and not get into these situations. But we've got some money that was previously in the budget, a little bit, not enough to do all of that, but we've got to do that, and I'm aware of the situation you're talking about in the old gym at the airport, and we've got that to be refinished on those.
in the new arena, Mr. King, where the floor's busted out, with the floor plates over, where they hook the scoreboard up for the basketball games, volleyball matches, there's a board there, and it really gives a lot.
Nobody's pointed that one out, but I'll see it in the morning.
Yes, sir. May I ask Mr. King a question? Are these schools reporting damage like this, Tommy, or are you just finding that?
I don't see every single work order that comes in, so I'm not going to say they're not. I don't see them all when it's kind of a routine thing. Robert disperses them and sends them out to get them done. But if it's specialized something that I need to check on, I'll certainly be glad to do that.
No, I'm just saying, like, this damage to the floor from the arena, from the bleacher, is an unsightly thing, and it's really scarred up that floor, marked it up, and dug it out. I would think that someone in that building should have, or this supervisor, or whoever, whatever, that should be written up.
Tommy, can you look when you check that out, see if you got some kind of work order or something?
Sorry.
Can't get it fixed if they don't want it.
Ms. Brandon?
Thank you, Ms. Wood. My only question, Tommy, is we're talking about moving these lockers and all that. I know there's not lockers in this area, but you just mentioned some tiles. Did the bubble
That's what he
ever
was
take?
talking about there.
That's what we're talking about,
I think there's a
That's the
$9,000 line item there
No, that's-
for tile, broken tile at BC High, down close to the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom of the staircase.
Yes, that's where the bubble was.
Okay.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That broken tile that needs to be, at that point, we were making sure nothing else raised up. We broke that out where it raised up, to keep from being a safety hazard, and put some flowable fill in there just to hold it, to make sure nothing else happened. And it sat there for about a year now, a little more than a year, and we feel comfortable that it's gonna be all right. So we're gonna go back and take that out and put broken tile back in its place, patch it in.
So that was not a water line issue up in
No.
there? So-
No, that was, when they did that, usually they put broken tile on concrete bed, which is a very substantial surface. Back when they did that on a compacted bed, and there was some shifting in that compaction. And that's what happened. And I think whenever we did the renovation there and all the new kitchen cafeteria, a lot of that got disturbed further up the line and caused some of that to shift. And that's what happened there.
Ms. Brandon, just to make sure, for clarity's sake, that's its own line item. What we were talking about with lockers, that's different.
Well, I know there's no lockers in that area. I just
Right.
wanted to see if that issue had been resolved, and if there was any possibility of there being water under there, and we go ripping out lockers, we might have some more issues.
Ms. Kessler?
That broken tile is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful, and when we go around and we see this poured tile that they're doing, and right now the name won't come to me, and it's all busted out. Yeah, Terrazzo, and it's all busted up, and even new facilities that we've built since we've been on board, it's all busted up, it looks terrible. Yet that broken tile at BC still is, when it's clean and waxed, it's gorgeous. So in looking at those facilities and thinking that we've got 3 new, brand new things going in, have you considered putting that broken tile in more places and reducing some of the issues that you have with terrazzo?
But typically, if epoxy terrazzo is applied and installed properly, you shouldn't be getting broken issues with images, cracks or is it
Cracks, broken, chips, chunks taken out, several places that
Well,
we've done, and they took it out before because there was major issues. So during construction, they tore out whole huge areas of floors because it wasn't put down properly, and then they redid it, and they're still, today, they're broken everywhere. So I really think for the long run economy, that broken tile is gorgeous, I think. And it certainly does hold up to everything. So I would just like for it to be considered, look at some of the ones that we have and look how unsightly they look.
Well, what we've established as our standard is that we're looking to put, in new schools, we're putting terrazzo in hallways and trying to put it in cafeterias if the funding is there, which, you know, in most cases, most people would consider terrazzo top of the line. I understand the broken tile, and we're going to go back with broken tile in our remodeling phases where it has broken tile and where it will tie in. In fact, I think Scooter River, I think that's probably what we're looking to put in that new cafeteria out there.
With the activity buses, and I don't know if anybody has the answer for it, but we've been on several trips that all have been with the school buses, and we're not able to get buses at our school on time to get the games on time. With these activity buses, are there special drivers for them so that we can leave the schools in time to get to North Augusta, Midland Valley, South Aiken, and Aiken on time to play a 5:30 game? We're not getting out in time. Our kids get there, have to get off the bus and run to the field and start playing. No warm up, no nothing.
I think, I know that Mr. King has a maintenance employee that drives buses for, and he is a chosen bus driver. I don't know, I'm not familiar with who we have that we're using for bus drivers for those trips.
We're always getting buses that have to come off of a route, which does, is priority, I understand that, but they're not getting to school sometimes for 4:15, and we're not getting our kids from Pine Ridge until 4:15, so it's really a problem for those particular sports that have to travel.
I can just go back and reiterate what Kelly said earlier. We've lost 16 bus drivers since the beginning of the year.
But those that drive buses on activity buses are doing real well. I mean, they sit there for 4 or 5 hours at $20 an hour, so
Right.
they're not hurting anywhere.
I'm not sure that we have enough bus drivers to run our routes and get back. I'm not sure that we have the excess drivers, the available drivers that we've had in the past.
How many total activity buses do we have at this point that we trust to go on long trips?
I do know we have 2, I think, that we're scrapping that are.
Well, we replaced 2 last year and 1 this year.
So there's 3, and this will be the
I think
4th.
we're at 9 now.
So,
Yes, sir, I think we're at 9 of the new buses.
I don't understand that.
The question she has is why are we getting yellow buses? And if I'm not mistaken, that's what we're buying.
Correct.
I think we're buying yellow buses as
So it's not
activity
going to be
buses.
activity Lexington 2 or Airport PC, whatever it might be. It's just going to be a yellow school bus.
It's a yellow bus that he could potentially use to run routes if he needed to.
But doesn't that,
They do say Lexington 2.
that bus says Lexington 2 on it rather than South Carolina Public Schools? So
That's
I
right.
think there's a difference. I think what Ms. Kay Kessler is saying is that she's ended up taking South Carolina Public School buses as the school bus route buses rather than the Lexington School District 2 activity buses. And I don't know, we have 9 of the Lexington 2 ones, Tom?
I think that's correct. I know when I was out there were times when we would send the state bus simply because of time frame issues. Drivers were ending up close to airport, for example, with their route. and we didn't have time to go back to the lot, get the activity bus, and then get people there on time. That was part of it when we were doing it. But we should have about enough buses to do all of our work now, except for situations where we don't have the drivers to get there in time.
Thank you.
Drivers probably a bigger problem than
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, we have the $1 million with CPIF going to technology, and it's mostly for, it's also included in the packet, switches and all that licensing and refresh. Any questions? Dave's please.
Ms. Kessler.
I see that you have the AHS baseball press box and ADA restroom addition to canteens for airport, which I appreciate very much. Can you tell me if you're going to do anything for a covered cage for the baseball, softball program at airport?
Long term, we are looking to do batting cages for both schools. At this point, there's not enough money in the CPIF budget to do one for either school. But what DC is looking at, and the airport has asked for the same thing, is to do them in vocational buildings that we're going to be vacating when the cage center is opened up. In fact, we met today with BC High School, and they're excited about the possibility of it being in there because of the fact that it's air conditioned, it's conditioned with heat, and you know, we're going to be able to open up a good large space for them to be able to use it for multi-purpose things. Now, obviously, that's something that we will be proposing to the board in April for BC. Not the batting cage, but we're going to be looking at the scope of work. That's part of what we're trying to further define, excuse me, for BC High School, just as we've done for airport. So that's one of the things that we will be discussing in April for BC with regard to the scope of work. But what we're trying to do, if that ends up being the case for airport and we end up doing it in the vocational building, we're still trying to settle our fire insurance settlement there, but we would take that money along with some CPIF funds, potentially bond money, to go back in and refurbish that building to accommodate the needs for that school. I know the principal has indicated that he'd like for it to be more of a college type environment for his, what word am I looking for the college and high school classes?
Early college.
Dual enrollment. Been a high school principal for years, but they just left me. But more of a dual enrollment type environment and upper levels classes in there. But they would also like for us to consider doing batting cages there as well. Now, I don't know where that's all going to settle out, but we're working through that process now.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to know, how did you all come to that conclusion? Who were some of your people involved in that decision?
For the indoor batting cages?
Yes, sir.
The
For both schools.
Well, first of all, the decision hadn't been made to come to the board, but the decision for us to bring it is from the principals and the athletic director.
Who we've asked to talk to the coaches.
Well, I just want to make it public comment here is that neither female softball coaches were asked anything at all. And when Title IX comes knocking, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. I think it is disgusting that those people were left out of the box and not questioned prior to decision making. And I think that is a disservice and injustice, and I know that many meetings were held with district office people, architects, athletic directors / baseball coaches. and the females were completely left out. They were told they would get something nice after the fact, but they weren't included, and I got that from both of them. It's nothing I'm making up, it's something that came from both of them.
Well, Ms. Kessler, just for the record, just so you know, I have not met with any baseball coach regarding this issue, other than the athletic director who is at BC High School, who happens to be the baseball coach.
That's what
That
I
was today. And
Well,
and
yes,
again, we
it's
have
a
not
Monday,
made any proposals on what we want to do, but I will tell you from a financial standpoint and from the standpoint of having a controlled environment, there are definitely benefits to having it indoors totally.
I don't have a problem with that at all, Mr. Eisenhower. What I have a problem with is that some of the playmakers were excluded from the decision
The
making.
decision hasn't been made.
Well, excuse me, they were informed what's going to transpire, and in fact, in February, they were told, one of them was told that the board had already approved, which I knew wasn't true, because we hadn't approved, but it was still stated. And I know that
I think we have to be careful about hearsay. And,
this is
you
not
know,
hearsay.
Well, it has to be hearsay because I haven't engaged in those conversations.
If there's any indication that district office folks have met with any of those folks, it's either hearsay or it's not accurate, because that's not true, but it sounds like it's a good thing that we don't have the money, then we don't have the problem.
Might be a way to conclude it, but I still think that when you've got athletic directors and principals and administrators, and you're involving part of this playmakers, but excluding the other part of the playmakers, that we have the problem.
Okay, any other questions?
The stuff you see there is $1 million of CPIF money that's in technology, and the formula of that is part of the board policy and the way we have to work. And you'd all know I was telling you a lie if I told you I understood exactly what all that is, but I do know that David Eskew is here, so if you've got questions about HP switches at the new Cougar Elementary site or the Cape Center site, or upgrade supplements, Fluta River, Springdale, any of that, David's here to answer it, but the formula's for $1 million, and that's generalized how we're thinking we're going to present the CPIF technology portion of the budget. Basically, we've just given you some overviews. I told you at the very beginning, we don't have firm numbers. We don't have firm numbers from the state in terms of revenue. We kind of have a good feel for about the personnel that we'll need next year. We've got a relatively firm look at CPIF. If there's something there that the board doesn't want to approve or wants to add or take away or whatever, we will bring that to the board in April, but we'll answer any questions. My purpose of the workshop was to give you an opportunity to see that we are working on the budget. We fully anticipate giving you a balanced budget. We fully anticipate being able to deal with things like the bus drivers being underpaid and thereby creating a bus driver shortage. The fact that we've got folks like our maintenance guys that get a little bit of an increase from the state, and it turns out they actually make less money because of retirement and insurance. We're hoping to correct those things. So just a generalized look. We'll be glad to answer anything, add to, take away, whatever we can do.
Ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On these 300 desks, were the people involved in selecting those able to get together so that these are common and can be gone, maybe paid out between schools and still match one another? Are they same types?
Well, that's a good question, Mr. Cousin. I'll let David give you a more detailed answer, but I'll tell you one thing that we have attempted to do is go to something common, because at one point in time, the district had 9,000 Samsung tablets. And there were a couple problems. One is they wouldn't continue to work. They were sent back to Texas. They actually, a good number of them went back to Korea. And
long story short, when I got here, we still had 9,000 Samsung tablets that we could not do statewide testing on, and a good number of them were in disrepair. We finally ended up under the threat of suit getting Samsung to give us new tablets, and we actually have 9,000 Samsung tablets that won't match up to state testing. I think David and his folks are actually looking at selling them to another district, but they moved to Apple products because we can actually test on those. We don't have to send them back to Korea, so it's taken us a little while, but we are moving to a standard. Yes, ma'am. David, if you want to expand on that, and they laughed about the Korea, and I understand that because some of us say off the wall stuff, but they actually did go to Korea. Or
yes, sir. Everything you stated is true. I don't think I could expand on it. That's pretty much what we're doing. We'll be finishing rolling out the iPads to the teachers at the end of this school year and to the new grade levels next school year. So we'll be fully iPad with the beginning of next school year. We still have some of the tablets at the lower grade levels where statewide testing does not take place because we're just trying to get as much as we can out of them before we have to get rid of them. But next year we should be fully iPad throughout the district.
I'm preparing, and that's a good segue, I'm preparing a note to the board to let you all know if you hear that David's selling off tablets. Yes, we are. And the reason is because for well over a year and a half probably, there were 9,000 broken tablets, or 9,000 tablets that would not work in the bottom of this building. And we finally called Samsung enough last year to they agree to give us new tablets. But for us, they're not very much good. One, we can't do state testing on them, and two, we already have Apple products. So David's philosophy is if we can get as much as we can out of them, it's a good thing. So if you want a tablet that doesn't match up with the state, we'll be glad to sell you one.
Brad says he'll take it down.
No, Kelly says no, we don't want to go to jail. You can bid on one, maybe that's better. That's pretty much it. If you've got questions about our revenue, anything that you want in this budget as a board, questions, whatever, that's what we got.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Adjourn.
Thanks for the information.
Other things we will be bringing